Hello.
Hey,
How's it going? How you doing?
doing all right. Just keeping busy.
That's good. I'm really excited that we're getting to do this right now.
Cool.
We haven't talked in a minute, and I'm very inspired by you. I've been kind of deep diving on the latest and greatest that you've been up to. And dude, um, you're killing it. Like this new book, I'm about halfway through it right now, is so good, and you're getting like so deep in on stuff. Um, I'm really excited about it, and I can't wait to finish it. How are you feeling with everything?
Checking out the book. We haven't even really started promoting the new one. So I'm glad you found it and you found it helpful. It's always good to hear. I mean, we've been working on that thing for a year and a half. So we're just kind of in build mode right now. So we're building a whole agency around that concept because I think it's like the biggest need that people have is there's so much people that have talent, but it's just capturing attention is that tool that you need in this noisy world that we live in.
Yep, it's so true, and it's called Hook Point. Already hooking you right at the beginning promo. But I'm really excited too because I'm hearing different sides of you in this book too, and I know your roots and where you came from is in the entertainment industry. So I relate a lot with how you think and how you have a message and you want to help other artists get theirs out, get their message out. And it's so funny, as an artist myself, that's actually something I think about a lot. Like if I can just inspire one other artist to like take the chance and go for it, then I'm doing my job. So talk a little bit about that too, because I know a little bit about your journey of like you focusing on your business, but then how did that turn into helping people with their businesses?
Yeah, it's a great question. And, first and foremost, it's interesting, especially, I don't know that it's just entertainment, but I think in any industry, there's always this sense of competition against one another instead of, how do we support each other? And especially when you look at like the entertainment industry and movies, you see some of these like Judd Apatow and like the crew that he created from scratch with the TV shows and movies, and they all support each other and help each other. And I think that there's so much to be said for that in a world where we feel like we have to compete against one another instead of like how do we support each other and help each other win. That's where I've seen a lot of the successful partnerships that either I've been a part of or I've witnessed in the entertainment industry. But specifically for me, I, I I don't know when exactly it happened. So I've been doing this for probably like 15, 16 years in this digital technology and social media world. And I felt like in the beginning, I just wanted to be the CEO of a startup and, really build a huge company and sell it. And there was an inflection point where I just realized I wasn't really best at like running a company. I was better at like distilling really complex ideas and strategies down into its simplest form and sharing it with people. And first that allowed me to like structure big partnerships and deals for the companies I was building. And then just when I looked back upon it, I just realized that I enjoyed more of sharing strategies, sharing information, and helping other people grow than trying to like grow my own things. And then it just shifted to, okay, I didn't realize it at the time, but I want to make a living and spend every day like teaching people, inspiring people, and helping them grow instead of like building some massive app or technology platform. And I think it happened probably about 3 or 4 years ago. And then ever since that, I've just been on this journey of that thought leadership and books and speaking and just helping people reach their true potential. That's what really fuels me.
And it's funny because simultaneously, you're growing as a now consequence of that, that you are helping people and you have dug deep into this strategy and like found some success for yourself and other people with that strategy, multiple strategies. But you talk about sharing. And that's such a huge word to me. And I actually wrote a song called Sharing a couple months ago because it's the only way that I can kind of make sense of my experience is, okay, so I'm going to kind of get this mind vomit out, get these emotions and kind of put them in a way that makes sense to me. But then where's the meaning if I'm not sharing it with other people?
Yeah.
And I think that's such a driver for artists who are really in touch with themselves. And you seem very in touch with yourself, by the way. And I know I'm getting really deep really quickly, but I've just like been on your page.
No, that's fine.
I've been on your page and anybody can go check him out. Brendan Kane, obviously everything is out there in the world that you've done, and you've done amazing things. But I'm really intrigued about like you as a person. And I've heard you talk about you've always been on this journey of self-discovery, and that you're a firm believer in meditation and all of these different things. Is that also at the root of why you want to help other people, because you want to help them tap into that you have found in yourself?
It's a great question. Where it initially started is I, and still today, I have this deep desire to be successful. It was ingrained in me and child. I had a father that was really hard on me and pushed me extremely hard. And then once I left the house, I kind of took on that role for myself. So this journey of self-discovery really started with how can I reach my full potential? And there's certain health issues I dealt with around like brain fog and like mentally crashing. And I was always looking for that extra edge to perform at the highest level. And that's where I started to always just dive into like meditation or yoga or learning different tools, communication tools, and things like that, so that I could perform at the highest level.
Mm-hmm.
So it started off as this self exploration journey, but then quickly shifted to, okay, this is great. I'm applying it to myself, but I also really love and enjoy sharing what I've learned with other people. So I almost see myself as a constant social experimenter, somebody that is learning and trying new things, because I want to do that for myself. I want to understand myself. I want to understand human behavior so I can connect with people at a more powerful level. And then through those experiences, I get to share that information with other people, which fuels me even more. And I'm always constantly on this journey of self-discovery and learning. I never want to stop learning because I really enjoy it. And I believe that being a human, like you never reach a ceiling. Like you can always become better. You can always learn how to connect with people better, understand yourself better. And I just enjoy it. And I love the process of learning it for myself and then just sharing it with other people.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, we're all the same anyways. And we all have different experiences, but it's through the same experience at the same time. I love that so much, and that fuels me as well. Because what better way to get to know others than to get to know yourself?
Oh, 100%. It's amazing how few people, adopt that mindset. They always kind of point the finger at somebody else or point the finger at something that's happened to them and say, this is the reason I'm not successful, or this is the reason I'm not happy. Instead of, it always starts within yourself. It's like you've got to work on yourself. And that's where, I don't know who said it or multiple people have said it, is like, if you really want to impact the world, is start with yourself. And I truly believe that, because if you're not healthy yourself, then how are you going to represent other people or connect with people in a meaningful way?
Yeah, and it's a good guider too. Like when you can be a role model like that, people can have something to uh, guide them and model themselves from in a good way, hopefully, because there's a lot of things out there that people are modeling that aren't so good. And I've actually been thinking about that a lot lately with everything going on in the world. It's very easy to get distracted with everything going on outside around you. And it took me a while to kind of get back to the roots of like how I perceive the world and myself, and this like deep understanding that we're talking about and this connectedness. It took me a while when when everything started. I slipped into a quite an unconscious state because I was so focused on everything else. I mean, it's important, you have to be informed, you have to know what's going on. But I got a little swept away with that. And I had to, again, come to the whole realization of it's all about starting with the individual. And I like knew that, but there's all these things going on and I want to help, I want to do something. And I forgot that, okay, wait, maybe it starts from within us first.
But it happens to all of us. It happens to me all the time too, is some things that we know intuitively or we've gone through, somehow we lose touch of it. And we just need to be brought back to that center or have that reminder. And that's why, I even try today and still struggle to get back to that, but having like certain grounding exercises or things that you can do into your daily life just to remind you of those things. Because oftentimes I feel like either when we're having tremendous success or our life is thrust into complete chaos on both ends of the spectrum, we tend to forget the things that really help us as individuals live in this world and just to be mentally healthy. And especially with everything that's going on today, it's kind of disappointing to see, especially with COVID, all of the conversation and talk just about the disease itself, which is bad, don't get me wrong, but there's so little talk about the mental health of what's happening to people being secluded, not being able to connect in person, that I think is really impacting a lot of us on a global scale.
Yeah, I've been hearing about suicides at excess and like all of this stuff. And I mean, our lives just got completely flipped upside down. For me, not so much. Like I'm in my home working on my music. I'm very independent and I'm used to working solo. But for most people who are used to getting up and going out into the world every day, existential crisis on steroids, I'm sure, And I mean, even the introvert that was like, yes, I get to be alone, initially, even I was phased and I had to kind of struggle through all of this. So you were talking about, grounding and getting back to center and connecting with yourself and that knowing. Are you easily wavered by the world and things outside of you?
I can be if I don't have that grounding. I would say that one of the things that I've implemented probably over the past year that's been really transformative is just breathing and breathing properly, which sounds crazy, but I just realized after research and getting some advice from top medical professionals that I've basically been breathing wrong my entire life. And when you think about it, it's something that you do, I think it's between 18,000 to 25,000 times a day. It's like the one thing that you do often. And as long as I am making sure to take care of myself, get my psychological needs met, breathe properly, then it doesn't impact me as much. But the minute that I forget those things, it can definitely throw me off. And just with the amount of information that I put out into the world either through ads or books or social content, sometimes it will throw me off when you get negative responses to it. It's something that is not easily to take on. In addition to like building businesses and helping clients grow, it can be a lot. And I won't lie and say that it never gets to me. It definitely can. And just the level that it gets to me just depends, again, how well am I taking care of myself first and foremost? Because without that solid foundation, that's when it can impact me heavily. So yeah, it can get to me. And I just work on that every day to make sure that I'm as grounded as possible to deal with the trials and tribulations that come with not just growing a business, but being a human being in this new world that we live in.
How does that disalignment manifest for you? Is it anxiety or stress or Depression.
It's a lot of anxiety. I've suffered with anxiety since I was a young kid. So there's a lot of anxiety around, am I good enough? Is the information I'm putting out into the world good enough? Am I serving my clients at the highest level? And I do get stressed, but I think that stress really expresses itself through anxiety. I think that's the main thing that um, impacts me on a deep level.
And your learning, your thing is like catching it sooner than the time before kind of thing, right? Because when you catch it sooner, then there's like less to have to get back to center from.
Absolutely. Yeah. The sooner you can catch it and the sooner you can address it, whether it's something that you address internally, or you reach out for help, or you get into certain practices of breathing and other things, the quicker you can pull yourself out of it. And the longer you let it settle, sometimes the harder it is to pull yourself out. So I think you hit it right on the head, is awareness and catching it, and just having the realization that it's coming up, that you are feeling anxious, and diving into why and going to the tools that have worked for you in the past is critically important.
Yeah, I'm still learning myself, forever evolving, and
I am too. We all are. Nobody masters it.
Yep, forever learning and discovering. And lately, breathing is an interesting topic, because I think I've been breathing wrong like my whole life too. I was talking to my mom about this a couple months ago, and I just realized that like my shoulders were always like this. I'm always breathing in my chest, and when I remember or like at some point just need to take a deep breath, it almost like hurt. It was like, wait, what is happening? This is not normal. I like wasn't fully breathing. And I think it was even impacting my singing because I wasn't taking full breaths. So getting back to basics and noticing those things and finding your signs of when you're starting to get away from that more grounded state, the symptoms of that have helped me a lot. And it's like so noticeable now that I have started to try to fix those things. It's like when my shoulders go up like this, it's only like 5 minutes later, I'm like, my shoulders are up. That's not how I've been doing, So started to find those triggers to remember.
Yeah, I had a friend. He's much older now, but he went to Juilliard, and he went way back in the day when he was in with some of the top actors and celebrities that are out there today. And he told me that the first thing that they teach you at Juilliard is how to breathe properly. He said that you cannot be a performer on stage or a musician if you do not know how to breathe properly. And I had also started to dive into breathing through a friend of mine who's a doctor and a top trainer and chiropractor. And he started experiencing major health issues. Like he was having these headaches. He would get very dizzy and sometimes faint, and he couldn't figure it out. And none of his doctors, he got all the heart tests and blood tests and things of that nature. And then he just started doing breathing exercises, and it fixed everything. And what he realized is he was going through a stressful time and he was holding his breath, and he didn't even realize it. And because he was doing that, the impact that it was having on his overall health and wellness by this just simple thing was dramatic. And again, it makes sense because it's something that we do more than anything else in our lifetime, 18 to 25,000 times a day. And just that simple process of checking in with your breath and doing it properly can make all the difference in the world.
Well, you seem so grounded to me. You seem completely unwavered, just like roots are deep. I've never experienced you in an anxious state. So surprising.
Well, it's a lot internalized, and listen, it's much better than when I was first starting out in my 20s, where it would be severe anxiety. I remember one point in time when I was running a startup, I had so much stress, so much anxiety that I went into a state where I had literally a panic attack every 15 minutes for like 2 or 3 days straight. I was just completely unhealthy. And do I still get anxious and anxiety today? Absolutely. but I know how to deal with it, and I know what it is. I have the awareness, and I know how to seek help when I need help. I know how to work on it internally with myself. So it's definitely much better. It's still a work in progress, and I think it will always be a work in progress. But it's something that I definitely value and pay attention to in my everyday daily life.
Same. Anxiety has been my thing as well. And I think one of my biggest breakthroughs with learning a new energy for myself was realizing that mentally I was identifying with it and believing that it was just me and who I am and how I'm wired, and that's just it. And I would even put like positive descriptions in my mind of it, like, oh, this is my angst, this is my rebel, this is my passion, this is my inspiration, this is what drives me in my life. Giving it labels to keep around, and sure, maybe I was just trying to survive and put a positive spin on it for what I could at the time, but it was also keeping me there. And I realized that I didn't need to be that. I didn't need to identify with it. And it can just be a passing energy if you don't attach to it. So that was a big thing that helped me a lot too, because I didn't realize that I was allowing it to be a part of my identity for so long.
Yeah, we tell ourselves stories. And if we keep telling ourselves the same story, then nothing will change. But you have the ability to shift that story internally and externally on how you want to show up in the world. And you mentioned something earlier that's a very powerful world is perception. We all perceive the world differently, and we have the power to choose how we perceive it. Now, sometimes those perceptions, and I would say most of the time, at least from my experience and just studying the field, a lot of our perceptions are defined through our childhood. And if we don't have that awareness, sometimes we can get stuck in that. And we can rewire the way that we perceive things. We can rewire neural pathways in our brain to show up differently in the world and to show up differently for ourselves. And one of the tools that I've just started implementing over the past few years that's been immensely powerful is doing therapy sessions with psychedelics. And I never touched drugs prior to this, and I never really wanted to touch psychedelics. It really scared the shit out of me. But when I did it one-on-one with a therapist that was referred to me, it felt safe. And one of the most powerful aspects to it is taking you back to those experiences in childhood and rewiring those neural pathways and giving you that ability to choose how you want to perceive certain situations, choose what are the stories that we want to tell ourselves, what are the stories we want to tell other people about us. So I couldn't agree more with that assessment of it.
That is so freaking cool. I have heard people talk about it. Does it start with an A?
There's ayahuasca.
Ayahuasca, that one.
Yeah, ayahuasca is not one that I have done. I know a lot of people that have. It hasn't really called to me. I did psilocybin mushrooms. And I think it's really important is to do what calls to you. And if it doesn't call to you, don't do it at all, because it's a very deep experience. And the reality of the situation is it's going to take you exactly where you need to go. And it may not be a place you want to go. And you've got to be ready to kind of really deal with it. But it could be immensely powerful if done with the right guidance and right setting.
Yeah, just recently, I don't know if this is at all similar or not, but I started doing hypnosis sessions with a therapist as well.
Yes.
And it's kind of the same concept to like tap into a deeper subconscious level to like fix these patterns and these neural pathways that we've built over the years. And I don't know if it's at all the same, but I do it once a week, and it helps me immensely and it's not hard for me to fall into that state either. I think it's honestly very natural for me. And I have done it not knowingly for a long time, but then would just slip out of it. But because I have those I guess just the ability to kind of let myself go. It's been just really working like instantly for me, and it sticks the whole week. Do you do these sessions often?
No, I've done it 4 or 5 times now in the John Hopkins clinical trials. What, I don't even know if it's clinical trials, but they're doing a lot of research with it right now. The way that they had broken down the structure is you do it 3 times spread out by, I believe, 30 days between each time. So that's where John Hopkins was doing it. And the set, I did it that way. And now I just do it whenever I feel like I need it. And I just listen to my intuition and follow that. But hypnosis, I've never done hypnosis with a therapist one-on-one. I'm dying to do it. But when I was experiencing all those panic attacks, somebody had given me a self-hypnosis kind of thing to practice, which is super easy. It's like a 20-minute, almost like guided meditation. It was immensely helpful and valuable. So I've definitely seen the benefits of it. And I'm very interested in diving in deeper in finding somebody to kind of do those one-on-one sessions, because again, it's very different, at least the self-hypnosis from the psychedelics. It's like kind of like crazy deep experience. And it's like the psychedelics I did, it was like 5 or 6 hours. But I believe in both, and both have amazing applications. And I'm glad you found that, and it's been helpful for you.
When you did do the psychedelic sessions, did it really take you back to that childhood stuff, or are you not really even aware of where you went? How aware are you during these sessions?
So it's interesting, like each experience was different. And the way that it works with at least the therapist that I do it with is you set an intention. So it's like, I'm having anxiety or stress about this situation, or I'm really lacking clarity about the direction I should take, or whatever it may be is a thing that you want to work on. And then through the psychedelics is, once you set that intention, it's really strange. It's like the subconscious just kicks in and takes you where you want. You don't know where it's going to go, or you may think you know where it needs to go, but it takes you to the exact location. So the first time, it just took me to this childhood experience with my father, not knowing that that's where I would go, and then worked through that. There was the last experience I had was like 5 hours of a journey to take me to one like situation between my mother and father that was deeply impacting me, and I didn't even know it. So each experience is different, and you've got to be in the mindset to just kind of let it go to wherever it goes. It's like I asked the woman that I do it with, is when people talk about bad trips, is that typically because they're resisting of where it wants to take you? And she said yes, because there were certain situations where it got dark, but I didn't fight it. I was just like, you know what, just I'm letting go. Even though it's scary, I'm going to let it take me to wherever I need to go. And it always turned out to go in the direction I needed to. And not saying it was easy, but it turned out to be a very positive experience.
Gosh, that is such an important key thing, not just to a hypnosis session, but to life. And that word resistance, it is such a tricky beast. Like, it'll be there and you don't even realize it. And it's such a hindrance on life. And especially, at least what I've learned through building my own business, it can be a huge hindrance to growth and opportunity. When I kind of learned to, like you're talking about, let go and just kind of let things happen and have more of a flow state rather than a grind, hustle, make it happen thing, which is always going to run in me, you know? Like, I am totally driven and totally can have a vision and run for it. But also like letting it go and like trusting that things are going to unfold the way that they should, has actually led me to better things than I could have even thought of.
It's funny how that happens. And I'm the same as you. I think that was, I don't know if it was the first or second psychedelic session I happened was like that trust and let go was the mantra that came out of it. And I'm not going to say it's easy for me because I'm like you, is like you want to push so hard and just work so hard to make it happen. But at some point you've got to, yes, put in the work, but at some point you've got to just let go and see what happens. And oftentimes, if we don't let go, we miss out on opportunities because we're so hyper focused on it has to be this way. It has to manifest in this way. It has to take shape in this way. And we miss opportunities and we miss signals. Like one of my favorite books that's the perfect analogy of this is The Alchemist, of him going through this journey of where he wants to go, and he's completely humbled. He loses everything to the point where he has to learn to follow the signs and just let happen what happens. And if you're able to do that, and again, I'm not expressing it like it's something that's super easy because I'm challenged with it all the time. But if you can do that, one, it's going to get you to where you want to go ultimately, and two, it's going to relieve so much stress and burden of just trying to force things to happen.
I don't think we're the only things at play here as well. Like there is some kind of, I don't know, destiny, universal power, something going on, just fate, I don't know, as a turn of events, whatever God, whatever you want to believe. There also is something else going on in that you're not the only one in control here. And that word trust that you use is so important because you can't always know what's best for you. Sometimes the universe or what is planned for you knows a little bit better.
And sometimes you have to go through the hardships to really learn the lessons that you need to in order to be successful. Is people often fight against failures or mistakes or get super down with it. And it's not easy. I'm not going to claim it is, but oftentimes those lessons that you learn set you up for the ultimate success that you're looking for. And when you run into failure or you run into a roadblock or mistake, when you turn around and just give up, that's ultimately where you don't succeed. But if you keep pushing forward and take those learnings, it ultimately sets you on that path. Again, going back to The Alchemist, it's the perfect analogy of that, of him wanting something so bad, but the minute he loses everything, he feels like he wants to give up. But the fact that he doesn't give up and just lets go ultimately gets him into a place that's 10 times more powerful and fulfilling than he could have ever imagined.
Isn't that the book where the first line is like, life is difficult, and once you know that, then life isn't difficult anymore?
I don't remember if that's the first line, but that's an amazing quote.
I think it is, but I might be thinking of another book.
I mean, life, and that's so true, is like life is as difficult as you make it out to be.
Yeah, and it's again releasing the resistance is really what that's saying too.
Yeah. It's like you see stories of families in India or impoverished places that can find so much happiness in with what they have, versus you come to like America where we're given everything, we have every opportunity, and we're one of the most unhappy countries in the world.
And I think too, kind of to both of these points here of vision, but then also, releasing and allowing. No one goes and makes a vision board of the challenges that they want to have in life.
No, you don't.
No one goes, okay, I want to have this failure, this loss, this whatever, to learn these lessons, to become a strong person of who I need to be to, reach success someday. And that's, I think, why you do have to let go a little bit, because you're not going to be the one to plan the things that makes you the success you'll be.
And it's also, we live in a society and culture where media propels wealth and success and being rich, but they don't show the story behind it. People look at the most successful people in the world, a Jay-Z or a Mark Cuban or whoever, a Beyonce, and they look at their success, but they don't look at the challenges and the obstacles that they faced in order to get there. And really, I wish that whole story was told. And I'm not saying it's never told, but just understand that no matter who you are, how rich you are, how successful you are, you're always going to run into problems. You're always going to run into trials and tribulations. And it's really your ability to deal with those that ultimately make you successful, either in business and life or fulfilled in some way, shape, or form.
Couldn't have said it any better. It's so true. And I definitely want to put that message out in the world. I kind of do that through my music, but that's really what I started Boss Pod for, was I wanted to have more words and like a longer form content to talk about what it's really like to be a creator and like the behind the scenes stuff that no one really ever talks about, because I think when it's talked about more, other artists can learn to embrace that part of their process rather than just pushing it aside and only showing like the good stuff. Because yeah, for me, even with songs, like most of my songs come from like the crappiest times in my life, like, and that's to be cherished. That's to be showed off too. Like, I think it's valuable. And what have some of your experiences been as far as overcoming challenges? I mean, I don't know. You seem like just success upon success upon success. That's what we see of you. Where were the roadblocks and what kept you going?
Well, I will say that there's roadblocks almost every day. So it may look like success on the outside, but we're dealing with challenges in our business every single day. And I've had miserable failures where I've raised millions of dollars for companies or my own company, it doesn't work. And I've had massive successes of companies I've helped generate hundreds of millions of dollars or generate millions of dollars for our businesses. And those obstacles and roadblocks just constantly come up. And to your question of how do I push through it? How do I go through it? Is I'm kind of in this mindset, and I don't know that there was ever an inflection point that I can point to. I just can remember it for the longest time. Is it's that analogy of the Vikings showing up on a different land or an enemy territory, and then they burn the bridges behind them, or they're not the bridges, they burn the ships behind them, giving them no other option. For me, there's no other option. I am not going to work for a desk job. I'm not going to work the 9 to 5. Not that I don't say that there's anything wrong with it. It's just, for me, it doesn't work. It's not who I am. It's not what I'm about. So when I have a failure or a roadblock, do I get upset about it or depressed about it? Yeah, when I first started out, sometimes it would take me days or weeks or even months to get over it. Now I've been through it so many times, I can get through it in a few hours. And then it's like, okay, what are the steps that I can take to keep moving forward and keep pushing? And one of the exercises that I give people, and I put it in the second edition of my first book, is why are you doing what you're doing? Like, if you're going after a record deal or 1 million followers or $1 million or whatever that is, why? Like, what is that going to do for you? What is that going to do for your family? Like, what is the real underlying reason that you're doing it? And once you understand that, then that can be your guiding light when things get tough. If you really understand what it motivates you, why you're doing what you're doing, and it can be anything, there's no judgment, it's a personal decision. Just don't go after surface level stuff. Like, if you want money to buy a nice house, like, a nice house is not really going to do it for you. But money can give you freedom to spend time more with your loved ones, with your family, or to travel the world or have experiences. And really dive deep into that answer. And that will help you immensely when things get tough. And just use that of understanding why you're doing what you're doing. And then it will force you to keep seeking out the answers that you're looking for to achieve that success that you're ultimately destined to have if you keep moving forward.
And if you're asking me, which you're not, but I'll answer anyways, why am I doing this? I figured out a few years ago, maybe only a year, who knows. But I realized that it's so cliche. Gosh, I'm hearing it in my head before it comes out. It's so cliche, but cliche stuff is usually true. But I realized I didn't have a particular destination that I cared about. I attached some things in my mind to that. Like I had some ideas of like what success, like what a goal would be. But none of them really stuck. And as I dug deeper, I realized, sure, yes, I do want success to whatever level is meant for me, but just that in order to keep doing what I love every single day. I don't want to have to get a desk job to put, a roof over my head. I don't want to have to work at Starbucks over the summer, like I want to spend every waking moment creating. So what is that? How am I going to be allowed to do that? By being successful at it. Just so happens. So hopefully, it continues. And that can be a consequence of me working really hard.
And it'll happen. You keep doing it, but it's great that you have that clarity, because that clarity is what's going to fuel you to keep going.
And then when I get there, I won't feel, because I've thought about this a lot. I've wanted to be a star for a very long time. Since I was a little kid, I always knew that I wanted to do something in entertainment. And when in my early 20s, my adulthood, my initial just straight out of college type girl coming out into the world, I felt like I was running out of time. And I felt like I wasn't going to make it quick enough. There's an age mark, and once you're at that age, it's over, And I think that was the root of a lot of my anxiety, was this rush and panic of time and age and all of this. And now I know I'm very excited, because I didn't blow up when I was in that mindset. I didn't blow up when I had those more surface level goals. And now I can actually be the artist that I do want to present to the world. And I can be fulfilled, and I won't feel empty when I reach the top and don't feel any different. So I'm so thankful. And I talked about it with this Atlantic artist on a previous episode here about not blowing up too soon, and that actually that can be an amazingly powerful thing, and that maybe you can have success and happiness, but it takes time to get to that place.
Yeah, and the beauty of the world that we live in today is success can come in so many shape or form. If you were a musician or trying to break in the entertainment industry 20 or 30 years ago, yes, there's a very finite number of ways that you can achieve success. And there's a very specific stereotype about ages and things of that nature. But the beauty of the world that we live in today is the internet has made it possible to be anything. Look at this kind of came off of television, but it really was sparked by the internet. But that woman, I think it was Susan Boyle, who took off on I can't remember if it was American Idol or
America's Got Talent.
America's Got Talent. Is just look at her, and now she has a career of somebody that doesn't look the part, that isn't young, but she has tremendous talent. And that's what people will always seek out, talent, and people will always want to connect with people at talent. I think we're moving more and more towards a world that supports people that are different ages, different colors, different backgrounds, different ethnicities. Is maybe it's not there with the older generation, but you can definitively see it with the younger generation, where they don't really look at those restrictions that have been put on us back in the day, before we had the beauty of the internet and broke down all of these walls of distribution and connecting with people all across the world.
Yes. And as you talk about in your book too, finally, we're getting to the actual stuff, I guess. We went so deep there, but it's all real, so whatever. In this new climate, you have the control to put yourself out in ways that you could never have before, without a ton of money, without a huge team, without getting picked up with some company or label or whatever. We can all do this independently. And you talk about being able to convey your message as an artist in a way that will hook someone in like the really short attention span climate that we're in right now. Can you tell someone like me a little bit about that? You know, as an artist, I create a lot of stuff. But then how do you turn that into something that is not clickbaitable, but hook pointable as a musician?
Yeah. So first and foremost, I think the best asset as a musician, or basically anybody trying to uh, achieve a level of success, is understand the best tool that you can learn is how to capture attention, because that's what you need in order to not just thrive but survive in today's world. Because we live in a world, for better or for worse, where there's over 60 billion messages sent out on digital platforms each day, between social media, push notifications, text messages.
With a B?
Yeah, with a B, 60 billion.
Jesus.
I mean, if you just sit there and just think about today alone, how many emails, how many text notifications, how many social media notifications, how many calls, all those things contribute to a very noisy world. And you're no longer uh, just competing against direct competition. You're no longer just competing against other musicians. You're competing against every other piece of content. So, like it or not, you compete against The Rock, Kevin Hart, Kim Kardashian, Netflix, Paramount, the news, all of those things. So, really understanding that people are being bombarded with content all the time, how can you interrupt that pattern? So, when somebody's endlessly scrolling and scrolling and scrolling, and they've just watched Kim Kardashian or The Rock, and they come to your piece of content, what is going to get them to stop and pay attention to you? And as I break down into hook point, is you've got to first win that first 3 to 5 seconds. Most people focus on their purpose, their passion, or their story, but they forget about that first 3 to 5 seconds. And that first 3 to 5 seconds is designed to get somebody to stop first, so that you can then win the next 10, 15, 30, and 60 seconds. So what I'm always thinking about is what is going to get somebody to stop and pay attention to what you have to say as an artist, or to pay attention to your next song. So to give you some examples of some musicians that have done well, there's a YouTube account called 10-Second Songs. So the concept itself is the hook, where this guy basically he sings a song, like he'll sing a cover song, but every 10 seconds he'll switch like a different personality. So he'll do a song, and in the first 10 seconds will be like Katy Perry, and then he'll move to Nirvana, then he'll move to like Michael Jackson. And what it's doing is that concept brings people in to be like, oh, 10-second songs, what is that? That's interesting. And then you dive in, and then you see his vocal genius, you see his ability to perform, that brings people in. And that's where a lot of covers will go viral. If you have a unique take on it, what it's doing is you're anchoring yourself to a pre-existing song that's well known. But if you do it in a unique way, it stands out. Like there's a woman that I got introduced to who did, I think it was Radiohead's Creep, that song. And she did it in like a Broadway type performance, and it went crazy viral. It got like 20 million views. And then I don't know if it was directly because of that, but I think it helped. Then she became the lead in the musical Broadway Wicked. So it was her ability to draw people in. Now, that doesn't mean you always have to tie yourself to covers, but how can you anchor yourself into ways that break out of the norm? Because I think I was doing for a musician client that we were doing some research, and I think there was like 1.2 million songs uploaded to Spotify every month. And when you think about that much noise, that much music, it's like, okay, how do you stand out? How do you hook people in? How do you be different? There was another band that I was working with called I Prevail, and they did a rock cover song of Taylor Swift that generated like 80 or 90 million views, that went there, made their song go viral, and then allowed them to tour. But there's other ways to do it originally as well. Like there's a guy that I follow that I think is just absolutely amazingly creative, and he's blowing up. His name is Mark Ribier.
Oh, I love him.
Yeah,
He's a weirdo.
and he's amazing. And he does these live streams where he's just creating on the spot, but he shows it through his personality. And he just, that personality and the way that he expresses his songs and some of the hooks that he does around those songs really help people, bring into him. And I was listening to a podcast interview with him, and I think he said he was doing it music for like 3 or 5 years or something. And it just, he was struggling to break through and figure out a way. And then he made that transition in his mental approach to it that helped him do it. And that's purely not doing covers, but an organic way. And I have another friend, Prince EA, who's one of the top viral video creators on the planet now. And he started off as a rapper, and he wanted to be like super famous and rich, and he was doing it for ego purposes, but it was falling flat. I think he generated 10 million views over 2 years, which wasn't horrible. But then he said, you know what, I'm going to take my performance skills and really deliver value and have a positive impact on the world. And since then, he did like 2 billion views in 2 years. But he used his ability to perform to do meaningful topics and meaningful hooks. Like one of his most successful videos was I sued the school system and won. And he uses it in like an urban poet way, but that hook of I sued the school system and won, it's really strong. It's like, what? You sued the school system? And then he did one about the environment. I don't remember what the hook was around that. But then there's another viral video creator named Jay Shetty, who's wildly successful. And I'm pretty sure he invented this format, but it applies to musicians as well, is he started creating content. And it's like, if you've ever broken up with somebody, watch this. Or if you're angry at a friend, watch this. And what he was doing is he was anchoring, these feelings, these emotions, these experiences that we all go through as human, to tying it to his content.
So smart.
And oftentimes I think that's overlooked by musicians, that people connect with music because it moves them at an emotional level. It helps them through an emotional time, or it speaks to them on a certain level. And that's where I think Jay Shetty really hit the nail on the head with his ability to draw people in with that hook, to say, if you are experiencing this, or if you've experienced this video is for you and can bring you into it.
So smart. Just putting it straight in the title, like the deeper root of why people are there for the music. That's so smart. Wish I had thought of that. So I recently had a viral video on YouTube, but it was totally by accident. So I wish I could say I had some big epiphany or some crazy awesome strategy or cool idea like that, but I don't. I was streaming on Twitch and I was singing a song of mine, and all of a sudden the earthquake last July happened. It was like the 7.1 earthquake in July. And my reaction was kind of funny. I said a bad word and I was like, oh my God, I just swore on my channel. And that was more like prevalent in my mind than the actual earthquake. And because of just my quirkiness and whatever, I guess it got put in an algorithm. It's like a 53-second video. So I think that really worked well too. But it's kind of a mystery to me, unfortunately, because now I'd love to replicate that. And I'm so thankful for everybody that found me because of it. And I've got over 10,000 subscribers now. Yay. But let's get another one of those in the books. How do I do that?
Well, I think you hit something on the head. It's the reaction. It's that authentic reaction. And you'll see musicians that, and it's amazing. I've started advising a few musicians, and it's amazing how resistant they are to some of these ideas, because they think it goes against their like artistic integrity or things of that nature. And it baffles me sometimes. But there's some strategies that really work. And one of them is you will see musicians go on Omegle and sing to perfect strangers and get the reactions from them. So Omegle, for those of those listening that don't know, it's like chat roulette where you can go on and get connected with random people.
That's so sketchy.
There's certain musicians that will go on there going after that reaction. Like there was one musician, I can't remember the name of him, but he went on and started off by saying, "Hey, can I sing you a song?" And he purposely starts singing it horribly on purpose. And then he starts coughing and then he drinks water. And then all of a sudden he starts performing amazingly. And the reaction of the people is similar to the reaction that you had with the earthquake. It's unexpected. Or there's another rapper that will go on and will say, "Give me words," and I'll come up with songs on the spot. And they'll do that. And then you see the reaction of these people that don't think the music's going to be any good. And then, you see this amazing reaction of it. And you could also do it from the standpoint is, have them tell you a story about when they broke up and then start singing a song on the spot, or sing one of your songs and say, "This song may help you out," or something like that. But that reaction of you singing to somebody else just puts you in to that kind of mood or that kind of intriguing aspect in the same way that people experienced it with you, the video and the earthquake. And there's another channel that I fell in love with on YouTube that I don't know the name of it, but you can just type in this video. But there's these two young kids that started reacting to very popular songs from back in the day. So one of their videos was reacting to a Phil Collins song, and it went crazy viral. And it's amazing that you would think that, well, everybody's listened to Phil Collins. These kids didn't know who he was, hadn't heard his music, and they've done it for other people like Queen and Jimi Hendrix because they just grew up on the hip hop culture and the new music coming out. And their reactions are so endearing. They're so fun to watch that you kind of live through them. So that's why you experience that viral growth, and that's how you can reproduce it, is understanding the psychological reason that it brought people in and how you can reproduce that in other formats.
Yeah, true that. And when you said the word reaction, I've done one reaction video to a Lady Gaga music video, and it didn't go viral, but it did pretty well. I think it got like 10,000 views, which, is still pretty good for me at the time before I went viral too. And I see a lot of people doing that, and I am to a place where I can streamline record these things and have it out the same day as the video came out, kind of thing. And I see a lot of people do that, and it's been in the back of my mind on something that if I was consistent with and quick to the draw, like some of these other people, which I would be of the few if it was the day of, things trending like that, that's been a thought in my mind. Is like the day a music video comes out of an artist, I'm going to do a reaction video. That's just been kind of in the back of my mind. I don't know if that's exactly what you mean, but
yeah, I don't know that it necessarily has to be like in the moment. I would rather focus on like evergreen reactions, because it takes time to build that traction in the algorithm. Oftentimes it doesn't happen right away, but you can still do it to real-time events. I would just look at the real-time events that you think are going to have a life to it.
I see. Okay.
Again, it's like those two young kids reacting to Phil Collins. The Phil Collins songs, I don't know when, probably 20, 30 years old. And, that reaction, because of the hook and the way that they reacted to that in this really endearing way, allowed it to go viral. So don't put pressure on yourself to be like, it has to be current events. Because that's going to be oftentimes, I think, harder to pull off. I'm not saying that if there's something that's really solid, go after it. But
no, that's really good advice. And I tend to do that. Thank you. I tend to complicate things and put restrictions to make it harder. So yeah, I totally agree with that. And so then it comes to the point of finding something that just is the most compelling, or what I think could be the most intriguing thing. Doesn't really matter.
And again, it's especially when you're talking about YouTube, is most of your traffic, if not all of your traffic, is going to come from suggested videos. meaning the thumbnails on the side or below, depending on where you're consuming it. And just visualize, what is that thumbnail and headline going to represent that's going to get somebody to click. And there's a few YouTube channels that are not music related, but that you can look at, like Mr. Beast is like probably one of the biggest YouTubers, if not he's on the track to be the biggest YouTuber. And he does like amazing hooks around his content, where it's like, I went into a restaurant and I ordered water and I tipped the waitress a gold bar. Like, or I bought a private island and I had a contest to give it away to my followers. Like he does these crazy hooks. And there's another one called Yes Theory that does amazing hooks around the content that they do as well. And the reason it works so well is because they understand that 3-second rule. Is if I cannot win that first 3 seconds to get that click, you're never going to get somebody to watch the content. There's just absolutely no free wins. So oftentimes, and the reason I wrote the Hook Point book is, oftentimes I advise people in everything that I do is I start from, how do I win that first 3 seconds? I don't create the content and then reverse engineer it to, okay, then how do I take this content and win the first 3 seconds? Is, what does that thumbnail look like? What does that headline look like? And if you can't put yourself in the user's shoes or the viewer's shoe and say, would I click on this? Ultimately, you're going to struggle to have any type of success. Then you're just playing on luck.
You said everything that was in my head, because that's how I've been feeling. It's like, is it really just up to luck? And then, also what you're talking about, thinking about the 3 seconds and what the thumbnail is. As a songwriting approach, sometimes I do that. Like, I'll start with the title, or I'll see the cover art in my head when I'm writing it. And that's actually really smart. And I think I could actually learn how to do that, because in my mind, I've been thinking about it the opposite way. Like, how am I going to take what I have and turn that? I don't know how to pick the best 3 seconds. Like, that's really hard for me as the person who burst it. It's like, do I need somebody else for that? For the stuff that I already have out? Or you're just saying, from now on, just start thinking that way as I create?
Yeah, well, you can go back. I mean, on YouTube, you can go back and change thumbnails and headlines. But one of the biggest tools that we recommend people do and spend time is always study the market. It's amazing how many people create content and don't study other people that create content. Or maybe they just think because they consume content, they're studying it. But go and look at other channels. Go look at Mr. Beast. Go look at Yes Theory. Go look at other musicians. Look at Mark Rebier. Look at other people. Go look at 10-second songs. And like, if you're trying to grow on YouTube, which is a great platform for musicians, go look at their thumbnails and headlines. And not just look at the ones that are super viral. Look at the ones that failed as well. What's the difference between the two? And also go to musicians that aren't having a lot of success. Like, one of the exercises that we give our clients to do is you create a gold, silver, and bronze reference guide. Find the people at the highest tier. What are they doing successful? Find people at the middle tier that are having like some success but are huge breakout stars. And then go to people that aren't having success at all. And like, study what's the difference between them. And that process will help you get better and better at understanding how to make your content stand out and also avoid the mistakes that others have made before you.
How do you discover these people that you like on YouTube? Is it kind of just up to your recommendation list, or do you have a way to find new artists?
Yeah, so there's a few ways. The primary way is just being a user of the platform. The more content you see or watch on the platform, the more the algorithm is going to start seeding you more content like that. And the algorithm will get smart. If you don't stop and watch content, they'll start eliminating that. So that's one way. A second way is we just, with my team, we're constantly like passing back and forth content. So find that kind of almost like a study group in a way, is like share content with other people. Is like, oh, did you see this video? Or did you see that video? And, just compare notes of why it's working and why it's not working. But the biggest way, honestly, is just to consume content, is be in the platforms, consume the content that you like and the content you want to study, and the algorithms will start seeding you more and more of that content. And that's where that discovery organically happens.
Yeah, and I absolutely love YouTube. YouTube is probably my favorite platform. In fact, I have like my analytics and like how much I consume. And I got like an alert that I'm at like 14 hours consumed a day. I'm like, how is this even possible? But like I sleep to a rain video. I wake up, and when I'm getting my day started, I'm probably listening to a podcast. And then later in the day, I'm consuming some other stuff that I want to catch up on. It's like, it really adds up. And we really are all living in the interweb at this point.
But now, as you start consuming that content, when you watch a video and it has a bunch of views, go to that channel, look at the thumbnail, look at the headline. Also, look at the suggested videos that are next to that video. Look at their thumbnails, look at their headlines, and just start getting in that process of not just consuming the content, but learning and dissecting it and seeing what are the mechanics that actually drive that growth, drive that virality, drive the algorithm to release it to more people.
This is a question I have for you too, because as you talk about consuming and studying can guide you on what to create yourself. How do you feel about having to put out and create on every single freaking social media and platform there is? Or is it better to hone in on one or two that you actually like?
I think it's better to hone in on one. Hone on the one that you love to use yourself and just get really good at it. I'm not a believer in just trying to tackle all of them at the same time. I think it's really hard to learn. And honestly, even people that are really good at content, most people do not get good at all of them. I could probably name like 5 accounts that I know of that have mastered all accounts or all different social platforms. It's really hard. It's really hard just to get good at one. Then when you start diluting your effort across multiple ones, it gets really difficult. So like for you, example, you love YouTube, and YouTube's an amazing platform for musicians. So just get really good at that and figure out what it takes and just keep reverse engineering it until it breaks through. And then once you break through, then you can make the determination, do I need to move onto another platform? Because YouTube alone can be a huge boost for a musician. An entire career can be built off of that alone.
Yeah. So, oh God, I maybe listened to you too hard and forgot what I was going to say.
No worries.
Oh, I know what I was going to say. With YouTube and videos, is it important to have consistency? Have you seen any trends with YouTube at all?
So there's different schools of thought around it. There's some people that say the consistency is key, and then you'll look at other channels that don't follow the consistency rule at all and kill it. At the end of the day, it comes down to content. Is your content good? If your content's good, you will ultimately succeed, whether you're putting out one video every day or one video a month. Like those rules, or those, you could call it a rule, you could call it a hack, you could call it a strategy. Can it help to put out more content? Yes, it gives you more chances to win. It gives you more chances to learn. But I would never put out a piece of content for the sake of putting out a piece of content. I'd rather see people double down and focus on getting one really awesome piece of content and putting it out there. And you look at those content creators like the Mr. Beast or the Yes Theories, and they follow that model. They're not really playing to like churning out as much content as possible. It's more focused on the quality of it. And you see that with musicians too, is like some musicians will work on an album for years versus some musicians will put out an album every 6 months. And most of the time when they cut those corners, the music or the end product isn't good. So again, to recap, there's different schools of thought and different people will tell you different things. But at the end of the day, we've just seen is if you focus on the quality of the content, or at least focus on what am I going to learn by releasing this piece of content, that's ultimately how you'll win.
Yeah. And you talk about learning from it. You talk about this a lot with like Instagram and Facebook, these dark posts that you can do where it doesn't go up on your feed and bombard your followers, but you can test multiple versions of the same post to see what works. Can that at all be applied to YouTube?
It's a little bit different with YouTube. Yes, you can run like dark posts on YouTube and test with paid media and learn things from it. Uh, it doesn't work at the level scale of Facebook or Instagram, but I do know people that do use that methodology and it works. But also, the beauty of YouTube is your ability to be able to change out that thumbnail and headline once something's gone live. And that's the beauty of YouTube. Like, if you mess with posts after it's launched on like Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn, it can kind of screw up your ranking in the algorithms. But with YouTube, those thumbnails or headlines can be switched out. And I don't know if it's launched yet. If it hasn't launched yet, I know it's coming. The ability to actually live A/B test thumbnails and headlines where the algorithms will test them against each other for you and then determine the winner.
And is that all through YouTube that you can do that?
Yeah.
Oh, wow, interesting. Wow, isn't that crazy that the algorithm can like compare it and decide? Wow, I didn't know it was that deep. Like I kind of thought it was more based on title and tags only.
Yeah, well, the headline and the title and the thumbnail play the biggest role. And I've even seen and heard theories, and I know some of the biggest YouTubers aren't even using tags anymore because the algorithms will pick up on it and know kind of who to seed it to and whether the content's going to resonate or not. But really, from a YouTube perspective, the biggest thing is your click-through percentage on your thumbnail and headline, and then retention and watch time. Is how long can you keep people engaged in that content once they've clicked through?
And so that brings me to one more question. I have one more selfish question. Is with my current channel, these boss pods, which happen to be an hour to an hour and a half, I have been posting on my channel, which is very out of character of everything else, which is usually music videos or covers or talking videos. People wanted a Q&A recently that I'm giving them, that sort of thing. I've heard that maybe with podcasts, that especially that long form creates an inconsistency that the algorithm or YouTube just doesn't like. But I don't know how I feel about starting over. That kind of feels daunting, starting a new channel for it.
Yeah, it depends on the channel you're trying to build. And it depends on your audience. Is your audience going to get confused with that? Or if they like your music videos, are they going to like your podcast as well? Is it a cohesive brand strategy? Because you just want to make sure that the subscribers that you have aren't completely thrown off by that. But it's kind of, again, it's just like, if I see a music video from you, am I going to want to dive into the podcast? If I see your podcast, am I going to want to dive into the music? Does it play kind of hand in hand with it together, is the way that I would think about it.
It's a tough call. I've honestly been kind of feeling some mixed signals about it. I don't get as many views on these, which is natural. But yeah, I definitely don't want to be confusing or annoying because I do put one podcast out every single week. And it's been kind of helping me psychologically knowing that I am putting content out consistently. With the Boss Pod, I kind of feel like it gives me a little bit of room to work on a music video a little longer and like not have this huge gap between content. But yeah, I might just start a new channel. Start over.
I would study Joe Rogan's strategy.
Yes, yeah.
He has 2 channels. He has the full podcast and he has the clips channels.
I saw that, yeah.
And the clips channel is like amazing when it comes from a hook point perspective. So I would really study it from that. And also from a strategy perspective, using the podcast to connect with people that you want to connect with that can help foster your music career as well, is having influencers that you may want to collaborate with on music, or people in the record industry and things of that nature. Podcasts are an amazing tool to be able to connect with people in a meaningful way that you can potentially partnership with in the future, or that can help be that stepping stone. So definitely I would look at leveraging the podcast from that angle as well.
Yes, 100%. And thank you for coming on the podcast.
Thanks for having me. It was great to connect.
Yeah. Do you want to just do a little pluggy for your stuff and where we can support you?
Sure. I would say that if people want to dive in more, I would start with my Hook Point book. They can learn more about it at hookpoint.com. And we also have a free masterclass on there, hookpoint.com/masterclass. Or they can direct message me on Instagram.
Fantastic. And what's your Instagram? Brendan Kane?
Yeah, Brendan, Brendan, last name Kane, Kane. So it's at Brendan Kane.
And I'll leave everything down below. Thank you so much for joining me today. You are just so full of wisdom, and I just hope you stay happy and keep doing what you're doing, because we as artists appreciate it.
Cool. Thanks for having me. Hopefully it was helpful to the listeners.
Totally was. Thank you. Peace.
Bye.